For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
Hey, so Russ, you're the expert on donuts. Have you tried the cake batter donut?
I have not. What do you think? Have you tried it yet?
I have not. I was just wondering.
I
thought I was going to trick Reese into trying and getting one, and I could have a bite, but he had no interest.
Now, here's the thing: is donut batter that much different than cake batter?
I don't know.
I mean, to really be distinguishable. Hey, Craig, who's that? Is that Dean? Is that Dean Gilbert in the corner over there? I think he's reading an advanced copy of the new TORG.
I believe that is a TORG.
Hey, Dean.
You're right. It's Dean.
Dean.
Oh, man. Guys, my TARDIS is broken.
Oh,
this is supposed to be Tim Hortons.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
Dean, look, Dean. First of all, your TARDIS is obviously wiser than you are because it took you to the better donut shop.
Oh, yeah.
So, Dean, welcome to Dunkin' Donuts here. What do you like for donuts? What do you normally get?
I normally get Boston cream.
Excellent choice.
That is a good. You know what? New at Dunkin' Donuts, Munchkin Boston cream.
Is that a thing?
Yes, Boston cream Munchkins. I will tell you from experience, when you're not expecting it and you bite into that little chocolate Munchkin, very surprising.
I will say that if they have real whipped cream in the center of the Boston cream donuts, I could be convinced to convert to Dunkin' Donuts.
Whipped cream? You don't put whipped cream in a Boston cream donut. It should be
whipped cream in a Boston.
Why would you put?
What are you talking about?
That's a Bavarian donut. You put cream. You put like custard.
You put Boston cream in a Boston cream.
Yeah. What are you
donut.
talking about, Dean? You Canadians, I tell you. Anyway, moving on. So, Dean,
we're just gonna ignore that and pretend it never happened.
so we'll just go back through time.
Now, speaking of time, well played, sir. Have you noticed? I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but it seems
never noticed.
It seems lately. There's been a lot of shows about time travel on TV.
Yeah, things come and go in waves.
It feels like we're back into the time travel. It's sort of like we want to do a show in sort of the supernatural sci-fi setting, but instead of actually making a very expensive show chock full of special effects, we're just going to throw a little time travel in there, which really doesn't. Maybe you get in a duffel bag, you get out, and you're in a different time. Maybe it's that simple.
I see what you did there.
Well, you think about it, like Doctor Who, right? One of the obviously the longest running time travel show. That show made it pretty simple. They had like a police box lying around from some other show probably, and they let's walk into that and walk out, and you're in a different place.
You know what's interesting? I find though is that Doctor Who is probably one of the few shows that actually goes to the future.
Yes.
Almost all the time it's back to the past.
Very true.
Yeah.
And they usually come up with a good reason because,
Yeah.
But that said, Doctor Who usually doesn't do some of the tropes for time travel. Like they don't change time. It's just a place to go to, a time to go to.
That's true. Yeah.
Except you can get weird things like Rory, waiting for 2,000 years and for Amy Pond to come back, if I remember that correctly.
Yes. Yep.
That was 2 or 3 years ago. I think my memory's going.
Yep.
Or 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
Yep. That's true. And so what have you been watching? I mean, which of these shows do you find interesting? I mean, obviously there's the classics, right? So, I mean, you can't really talk about time travel and not mention Doctor Who.
No.
Do you think Doctor Who is the I mean, when you say time travel, it's almost like if you've ever watched Doctor, it's like the show that's going to pop into your head first. Do you think it's so quintessentially the time travel show? I mean, you mentioned it goes to the future. I don't think so
because, like I said, it doesn't deal with the effects of time for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree.
There's the ones I think that are really good are the ones that actually, affect time in some way or history in some way. Yeah. And that's why I really like Timeless, is because they did that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I find that it's important, if they're going to be changing time, that they have some rules and they follow them.
Yeah.
Without manipulating them too much. And I mean, I just finished watching this season of Timeless and fortunately got renewed. But Timeless is a little bit weird in that they do change the history. Like you'll have events that happen in the past affect the people in the future. Yeah. But there's a little bit of a weird thing going. Like you go, well, what happened to the version of these three people who went back in time that the people in the future knew?
Yeah.
And it's sort of a little weird. Like I think you just have to ignore it after a while.
Well, I thought it's interesting because I think it's interesting to think about when we talk about these shows, like, do they have rules about time travel in place, and are they consistent with them? Right? So like you think about Doctor Who, there's not very many rules in Doctor Who, but there's a couple, right? Like,
yes.
But like in Timeless, what was it? You can't go back to a time when you're already alive. Isn't that the rule?
Yeah. It seemed like they have to go.
You have to go before you were born, and you can't go back to where you've already visited. You've already been, right? So every trip is
only one iteration of you can exist in each timeline, right. Each time,
right? But they haven't explained if it means you physically can't do it or they don't recommend it.
I think the writers are being a little loose on that.
Yeah, they're giving themselves room on that. Yeah.
Yes, and that's probably a good idea. But yeah, it's more the effects of changing the history that are a little bit weird to me.
Yeah.
But then again, time travel's weird.
Well, but I like time. I like how Timeless, like, they do imply, because a lot of shows, they just avoid sort of the butterfly effect of messing with time. Like, there's several theories that time travel's not possible, because if you could pretty much step on an ant, like wipe out a civilization by accident or something, right? But like, most shows kind of say, well, that's not really an issue, but in Timeless, they kind of do imply it, right? Like, they do small things and all of a sudden, like, her sister's gone or whatever. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like all of a sudden, and then now she doesn't know how to get her back. Right. Meanwhile, the other guy's trying to, like, his wife is dead and he's trying to figure out a way to undo it. So he's trying to cheat and cause a time change.
Just as a side point, there's actually a card game that is all about that sort of thing.
Right. That's really cool.
What's it called?
Chrononauts or Back to the Future.
Yeah, Chrononauts. And there's the Back to the Future version of Chrononauts. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, have you guys watched Legends of Tomorrow? I have to admit, I've only watched one episode and I didn't really enjoy it that much.
That's all I could do.
But
I have not.
But that show has time travel and they go to the future, which is why they're Legends of Tomorrow. So it has both those things. But unfortunately, it has some really not compelling superhero type characters that make it not fun to watch for me. That's the biggest problem there. And the writing in the early, now it's gotten renewed, so I'm guessing, or twice now I think. So I'm guessing it's doing okay, and maybe they got their quirks figured out. But I
don't know. Those WB shows have a very low threshold, I think, of renewal.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that the second season's better, but that's just stuff I've heard.
Yeah, I tried and I couldn't do it. So,
and you're into all the other ones.
Yes.
Right?
I gave up on Arrow eventually though.
That's true. Yeah.
I like Flash still. That's pretty much it at this point.
I guess Flash is another one of those time travel shows.
And actually it's funny. So time travel in Flash didn't bother me or does not bother me because he's used it now several times. But I know a lot of people, like my brother, really didn't like how they use time travel at the end of the second season. It basically is what I do hate this trick in time travel, and Star Trek uses it a lot, which is, let's do something really cool and impactful that would, like kill a main character. Oh no, wait, time travel. We undid that,
It's the reset button.
Right. Yes. If you use time travel as a reset button so you can do something crazy, and Flash essentially did that, right? It was like, oh, well, we'll reset it. Or
I'll give you an exception that proves the rule, though.
Yeah, sure.
Yesterday's Enterprise from the Next Generation.
Okay.
Where you had the Enterprise C come through into the future from the past. Yeah. And in this new timeline, Tasha Yar was still alive.
Yes.
And she goes back with the Enterprise C. And sooner or later, you end up meeting her Romulan daughter.
Yes.
And so it actually did mean something.
Yeah, but that, you're right. But in that case, which is interesting, is this is such a nerdy conversation. I love it. In that case, what I love about that case though is they didn't really do a reset. It's not like Tasha died and in the same episode or 2 or 3 episodes later in the same season, she's back due to time travel. It's right. Tasha died and there were like seasons later, there's a thing with her, with the actress returns to the show for a cameo. And then they use that plot later to bring her back as a semi-regular Romulan character. I thought that was a really cool idea, but it wasn't like, where you're watching the intro, you're watching the preview of this week's episode of Star Trek and you see the nacelles getting blown off the Enterprise and you're like, oh my God, how are they going to get out of this one? And then you watch the episode and all that happens at the end, they rewind time and you're like, oops, it's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Like, actually, now that you just reminded me of a different show that has, time travel in it that did it really well. Mm-hmm. It does it. In fact, actually, I would go so much to say that this show did the effects of time travel better than any TV show before or since. And that was Babylon 5.
Yes. I forgot about that, but you're
Babylon
totally right.
4.
Yes.
And Balin. And it just, when I watched that for the first time and when they did the past part, in the first season, I think it was.
Yep.
And then they did the future part 3 seasons later, and it all made sense, finally.
Yes.
That just blew my mind.
That was awesome. I'd forgotten about that. You're right, Dean. That was a great scene.
That's what happens when you have one show written by one guy, planned out for exactly how many seasons, and everything had a purpose.
Have you guys gone back and watched Babylon 5 again? Does it hold up? I have not, and I should.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
I watched it. I watched it about 10 years ago with my wife. Yeah. And to this day, I cannot watch the series finale.
Oh, really?
The feels, man. I just turned into a blubbering wreck.
Now, because I remember the first season was a little rough, right? And they figured it out in the second season.
Very, very rough.
Yes.
But that's okay. But I kind of want to go back, and watch it again. I think my kids might enjoy it, but I don't know if it holds up. Sometimes I go back to those shows and they're not.
I think it totally does.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, the story does. The only problem is that the special effects, they planned to redo them, but they lost the masters.
Oh,
and so they just had the low res, pre-high def graphics. So it'll look really weird on a high def screen, but I feel like the story.
And no one wants to remaster. I feel like with today's CGI effects, you could redo the ships, pretty easily, right? I mean,
but I actually asked JMS if they would do that, and he said no.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to be Star Wars, right? They don't want to redo it and have it be worse. Somehow.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, that's good memory on that. I'd forgotten about the big time travel thing in Babylon 5. That was great. And we might as well talk about Star Trek. So Star Trek has quite a few time travels in it. And I don't know, what do you think of that? I got to the point where I didn't like seeing time travel in Star Trek because
I didn't either. I mean, they went to that well too many times.
They did
way too many.
I would say.
I mean, the first one probably is the best one when they did the City on the Edge of Tomorrow.
City on the Edge of Tomorrow was fantastic, and I think I forget the name of it. The movie with the whales was
Voyage Home.
Voyage Home, right? Voyage Home, I thought was really, really good, and was generally
Nuclear Vessel.
Yeah, I think that was, and Scotty with the mouse and the whole thing. That was just great. And they even did it was the only time travel that Star Trek really did that wasn't magic. Like the way they did it, actually, there's some theories in physics that could have worked, right? Like where like City on the Edge of Tomorrow was just sort of like magical portal. We'll walk through, So that was cool. But the rest of them, almost all of them, was like, let's use time travel as a plot device so we can do this crazy thing,
Although Trials and Tribulations from DS9 was a pretty good plot device.
That was pretty good.
That was fun.
Yeah. So did you guys watch Travelers on Netflix? Did you see that?
Yeah, no, this is on Netflix?
Yes.
So it might be on Netflix in the States.
So
is
Travelers,
it a Netflix show?
Do you guys know about Travelers?
It vaguely sounds familiar, but
Travelers is super cool. The concept for Travelers is super cool. So what's happening is it's taking place today in our world. And I think it's only like a couple years old, and there are 2 seasons. I can't remember if they're going to make another one. But basically there's some future state of Earth that's bad. And so they can basically download people from the future into bodies of people today. Right?
Oh, sounds familiar.
But what they do, I thought you watched this show, Craig.
I must have, because it sounds very familiar.
I think I mentioned it on the show and you went and watched it and you enjoyed it. So what they do though is they don't want to change. They don't.
When you die, they pick a person right before they die.
They don't want to kill somebody.
That's right.
They don't want to kill somebody because when they download themselves into a person, they wipe their old person out. So what they do is they pick a person who's about to die because they're in the future and they have complete history. They pick a person who's about to like get hit by a bus and they download into that person right before he gets hit by the bus and they jump out of the way. Right. And so now they've got that person's body and yes, they killed the person, but the person was going to die anyway. And what's neat is, then they started introducing some cool plot devices where the people in the future could communicate with and there's a whole network of these, they call them travelers, and they all have numbers, like I'm Traveler 357, I'm Traveler 258, and they all have little missions because basically they're trying to influence history in positive ways, so that the future somehow gets better. You think, but what you don't really know is are the people in the future good guys or bad guys? Is there only one faction in the future, or is there more than one faction? And you start to find out it's complicated. And then what's really cool is they figure out ways to send messages back and forth because children's brains are more malleable and they kind of transmit a message in there without doing any permanent damage. So like one of the travelers will be standing there, all of a sudden, like a little young child walks up to the store. Hi, mister, would you like to buy some Girl Scouts? All of a sudden, boom, Traveler number 357, you have a message, from, but it's really cool. And, I thought it was really excellent.
I liked it a lot.
And it's one of those shows that's good fun. It can be low budget because it's just a bunch of, actors in our time that are pretending they're being possessed. But I really liked it a lot. I thought it was great. So if you see Travelers, check it out.
Did you watch, the 4400?
No. Was that like that?
It's a little bit like that. The difference is that these people coming back they get superpowers, and part of the reason they have superpowers is to stop a bad future. That gets revealed eventually, but it was one of those shows that had a nice meta plot but got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wish Travelers. I think Travelers has been canceled, but I wish it would keep going because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. We forgot another show that's a classic is Quantum Leap. Did you guys ever watch Quantum Leap?
Oh, I loved Quantum Leap.
I loved Quantum Leap.
I recall watching it a few times, but it was so long ago. I just remember watching it. I don't really remember. I don't think I watched it regularly.
Quantum Leap had some really cool premises. It starred Scott Bakula, which was he later became the captain of Enterprise.
Yes.
So the deal was he figured out a way to travel in his own lifetime. That was the shtick of the show. And the second part of the show is it's kind of like Travelers, where his essence would hop from person to person. But the shtick was that he tried it once and got trapped in a loop. And now he goes from body to body in different time periods, but all that time period is in his lifetime. So if he was born in 1950,
he has no control over it.
And he has no control over it. But what's interesting is whenever he shows somewhere, he has there's this implication that there's some higher power controlling where he lands, because whenever he lands in somebody, he's in that person's body and he can look in the mirror and he's that person. Now for the show, they show the actor playing, but every time he goes by a mirror, he sees the real body he's in. And it could be a woman, it could be a man, it could be a kid, it could be an old person, whatever.
Right.
But they have something. It could be sometimes it's been a non-human. And he has some mission he's supposed to do to make this person's life better, or indeed affect, sometimes it's just a small mission to help one, dying child leave a message to his parents so they don't feel bad. Or sometimes it's a very large mission that impacts hundreds of people to do something. But then the other thing he has is this guy, his companion, who doesn't really travel through time. He's got a way to sort of appear as a hologram.
He's a hologram.
Ziggy.
Yep. With Ziggy, this little computer. And so every episode they're trying to,
Ziggy is the computer.
Yeah, Ziggy's the computer. So the thing that happens every episode is that, the main character does not know what his mission is. He just knows he's in this body. And so his companion is running the computer and trying to figure out with various probabilities what they're trying to do. And so as he goes through and starts doing things, they start getting data back from the computer on whether or not he's doing the right thing and if he's heading in the right direction or things are getting worse, which is really clever because you get these situations where it's like, what the hell is he in this person's body for?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really cool concept and really, You know, it was only the slightest nod to science, but it was a neat idea.
Do you want to know some trivia?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
The entire concept of the show is based on absurdist theater.
Really?
And the father of absurdist theater's name was Samuel Beckett.
The main character, right?
The main character's name is Samuel Beckett, and the sort of the touchstones of absurdist theater is characters that suddenly appear in they have no past and no future, and they repeat things over and over again for reasons the audience doesn't know. And it has meaningless dialogue that the audience has to figure out what the people are saying, because up front they don't know what they're talking about. So it's really like on several different levels, it's built into that show, the whole concept of absurdist theater.
It was a great show. I really enjoyed it a lot. I miss it.
Like I said, it was trivia.
That'd be a great show to reboot. You know,
three roads talk. You know,
it would be, because now you can go back to the 80s and the 90s, and
and I think it could totally. I mean, it could be a different act. The premise is fine, and as Craig points out, it makes great theater. So I think the concept of it gives you lots of room to do fun things. Like, you know, just grab the name and go with it.
I don't know if it's flashy enough nowadays. Go around and do good deeds. I don't know if that's...
but you got gender bending and stuff, because now you could do some cool sort of modern issues.
Back then it was like, wow, that's amazing. They're like totally like bending everything, and now it'd be like, well, that's expected.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Although I do remember one episode where he was in I think it was a veteran who had lost his legs.
Yeah.
And he stood up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think I do remember that.
I remember
he was floating.
The great thing was the shtick was at the end of every episode they'd show him appear in his next body, and he'd always say, "Oh boy!" And I remember the one where he appeared on the gurney in the body of a pregnant woman about to give birth. He's like, "Oh boy!" That was a pretty funny one. So it was I thought it was a really clever show, and I liked it, and it did a good job of staying internally consistent. But it's its time travel wasn't that complex, but it was sort of on the Doctor Who level, I would say, of complexity, but it was pretty neat.
I liked it later on when the Dark Leaper was brought in, introduced. Yeah. And so you had a diametrically opposed guiding figure that was actually making that woman go back and forth and actually ruin people's lives.
Right.
And of course they fell in love.
Of course.
Because they had so much in common.
Right. Now, have you watched the new show Making History?
I have not.
I've only seen half an episode, so I'm going to get write-ins on this again. But
only if you tell everyone they should never watch it again.
Well, I don't say you should never watch it. I tried, but here's the thing. I really, really, really like Timeless. And my kids really like Timeless, and my wife really likes Timeless. So we really like Timeless. And Timeless, we just gotten to the end of the series, or the first season. I think Timeless finally got renewed. It was on the bubble, and I think they finally made the turn.
Well, they canceled it, and then they brought it back.
Yeah, so that's just good, because I think the show deserves it. I like it. But the Making History just launched, and this is a comedy, right? So it's it's intentionally a comedy. It's very tongue in cheek. I guess what I remember the episode I watched, the professor, he's like a professor at college, and he takes a gym bag and puts a bunch of wires on it, and he can climb inside the gym bag and go back in time, and then climb out of the gym bag, and he's there. And he starts like, he's I forget who was mad at him in history. I want to say it was like, Sam Adams is like pissed at him, and you don't know why. And then you find out he's like hitting on Sam Adams' wife like the whole time. So like, it's like that kind of stuff, which is changing history. And so then he needs help because he's realized he's changed history. So he goes and gets another one of the professors and brings him back. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have watched it. I thought maybe you watched it.
No.
It's only it's using time travel as but the thing about it was like, it wasn't really maybe it's gotten, I mean, I've only watched half an episode. So again, but it was just sort of like time travel was the plot device, but in the end it was just a standard sitcom. It was a situational comedy. So I wasn't really doing things for me.
There's a show on Netflix that's a Netflix original called ARQ, A-R-Q.
Oh,
have you watched that?
I just saw a preview for that. How was that?
It was pretty good. The ending was a little bit weird, but it definitely plays with the going back in time. And the difference with ARC is that they're looping.
Oh.
But one of them
that's right.
remembers the looping. And
Yeah.
that's where it gets interesting. And eventually his companion starts to remember the looping as well, because otherwise you'd just be arguing with your companion every time that, no, really, this is going to happen. And then of course it happens again.
Yeah. Was it like
that? But it was really good. Although, like I said, the ending's a little bit weird, but
Is that a series or one
it's
off?
a movie.
So is it like Edge of Tomorrow? Because Edge of Tomorrow is awesome.
Yes.
Was awesome.
I
Geez.
think
We haven't talked about Edge
Well,
of
we were
Tomorrow.
talking about, we were focusing on TV, but now I think we should go to
Well,
movies,
that's
because if we're going to go there, I think Edge of Tomorrow was one of the best treatments of a time loop.
Yes.
Ever. I mean, what did you guys, that movie blew me away. When I saw that movie, I was just like, oh my God, that was fantastic.
I
What
loved
did you guys,
that movie.
Yeah. What did you guys think of that?
I loved it, and partly because it worked. It was consistent,
Yeah.
which is not, and it didn't have to cheat to do that.
Right.
And so I really like that, because I'm a time travel junkie. I mean, I read books and stuff like that, so I have a very, very high standard, I guess, on having the rules be followed.
Yeah.
That you make up, and they did it really well.
Yeah. That was,
And it was funny.
and it was
Yes.
just, it worked on every level. It was such a great film. And if you are a time travel junkie and you somehow have not seen the Tom Cruise movie, Edge of Tomorrow, I think there's flavors of it that are called Live, Die, Repeat. I can't remember which flavor of it, but
I think that was the original title.
yeah, such a good film. Such a good film. I would highly recommend. If you like time travel, you have not seen that movie, you're missing out. It's a good one.
Yep.
Very good one. Maybe we should end on that note. I can't think of a better time travel story than that. Can you think
Well,
of anything?
I was just thinking, because I'm reading The Dark Tower now. There's time travel in that.
There is. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still in the middle of the resolution of it, but I'm very intrigued with how the concept of paradox is being dealt with. When
Yes.
the little boy dies, and then he
No, I think
then he goes back in time and saves him almost by accident.
Yep.
And
no really cool stuff happens. Which book are you in now, Craig?
I'm in book 3,
Okay.
The Wastelands.
Yeah, that's a good one too. So are you into it now? Because I know we talked about this. I know
That I've talked to a bunch of people, listeners and friends, and it seems like a lot of people had the same experience I did, where book 1 is just really not very engaging for whatever reason. But if you power through that first book, what follows, at least so far as I've been able to tell so far, is well worth it.
Oh yeah.
Can you start with book 2?
No.
No,
you
not
need
really.
to watch in the beginning.
No.
You just go for it. You'll just go for it.
It's been on my radar, so that's
It's
why
very.
here.
I should say it's very short.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is why which actually worked against it for the longest time, because I was like, well, maybe I'll do it with the audio book. But then I didn't want to spend a whole credit on a 7-hour, But then I just bit the bullet and did it, and I'm very glad I did it now.
The books
because
get longer, so by the time you get to like Wolves of Call and stuff, they're pretty fat.
Oh, already I'm like at an 18-hour book.
But there's really cool stuff that happens here too, because it ties into all of Stephen King's and other universes of work.
Yes.
But then what happens is, in other bits of his work, because I like Stephen King, so I read a lot of his books, he actually references, sometimes very subtly, sometimes very obviously, back to the Dark Tower.
Right.
So there's a lot of crossovers that happen, a lot of, you'd like it, Dean, because you're a big TORG guy, and it's all these alternate realities that come together and intersect and borrow from each other. And, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think you'd really dig it. So it's really, what gets weird about it though is it gets very existential at certain points. So it's kind of like, whoa. But I think it's a good way if you like that kind of mind bending stuff. There's a lot going on there.
Yes. Yes. And mind bendy. Well, time travel's mind bendy. And then we're back to the beginning.
There you go. So, well, Dean, thanks. It was great to see you here at Dunkin' Donuts, and maybe,
always fun to talk to.
Maybe you can get back to Tim Hortons later. But You know, you can't get
Try to fix your TARDIS so you can get back to your Canadian version of
and
reality.
You know, Dean, you actually cannot get a Boston cream donut at Tim Hortons because they call it a cream-filled chocolate-covered donut. Because clearly they don't actually know it's from Boston. And it's
well, they don't
Well,
have you don't have your own Boston. That's true.
I will say that, we have Boston pizza.
Okay, that's not even a thing.
I don't even know what that would be.
That's
we
not
don't
even
have
a thing.
Boston pizza.
No, that's not a thing. You can have Boston
You got
baked
Chicago,
beans.
you got New York.
You
That's
can have New
pretty
England
much
clam chowder. Yeah, we don't do pizza up here. Okay, it's not a thing.
Yeah, and if you're getting pizza that's claiming to be Boston pizza,
Right.
you probably don't want it.
You're too far north. Go to New York, right? Go to New York or Chicago, right? Yeah, get out of it. Yeah. Well, Dean, thanks. We'll see you on the main show here really soon. Have a safe TARDIS ride back to Canada. Eh?
All right, well,
Yes,
we'll talk
indeed.
later.
All right, take care, Dean.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.